another Boomer Music Experience, Dave Scott, with my good friend Randy Helmo, and we're going to take a look today at the life and times of one Robbie Robertson from the area, in our area roughly, where he spent some of his early years. And Randy's going to tell us the story behind Robbie and the band. And I don't think people really understood or appreciate the value of this musician, Randy. I mean, the guy wrote pretty much everything the band did, and just his guitar playing, underrated. And we're lucky to have such a special person come into our lives with music, don't you think?
Absolutely, Dave. And yeah, Robbie Robertson, totally underrated. And he was an integral part, a driving force for our the band. Robbie Robertson, he was born July 5th, 1943. He was a Canadian musician. He was lead guitarist for Bob Dylan in the mid to late 60s and early to mid 70s. Okay, coupled with this, guitarist, but he also wrote a lot of the songs with the band from their inception until 1978. And of course, he was also a solo artist in his own right. Robbie Robertson's work with the band was instrumental in creating the Americana musical genre. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Canadian Music Hall of Fame as a member of the band, and into Canada's Walk of Fame with the band, and of course on his own right. Now Robbie, he is ranked 59th in Rolling Stone magazine's list of the 100 greatest artists guitarist of all time. Now, here's something that maybe our listeners did not know. Robbie Robertson wrote The Wait, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, and Up on Cripple Creek with the band. And of course, he also had solo hits with Broken Arrow, Somewhere Down the Crazy River, and many others. Robbie was inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame, and he received, and this award right here says it all. He received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Academy of Songwriters. And boy, I'll tell you, when you receive a Lifetime Achievement Award, that is the ultimate award, the greatest honor a singer songwriter can ever achieve, and it is the ultimate. Now, in addition to that, Robbie collaborated on film and TV soundtracks, usually with the director Martin Scorsese. And Martin Scorsese was a really good key person to know. And of course, they filmed The Last Waltz in 1978. Other dramatic films, just a few to mention, Dave. Raging Bull, 1980. Casino, 1995. The Wolf of Wall Street, 2013. And The Irishman, 2019. Also, The Killers of the Flower Moon this year in 2023. But let's journey back. Let's take a look at the early life now of Robbie Robertson. As I mentioned earlier, he was born on July 5th, 1943. He was the only child. His mother was here's a name for you, Rosemary Dolly Chrysler, on February the 6th, 1922. Now, she was Cayuga Mohawk, raised on the Six Nations of the Grand River Reserve, southwest of Toronto. So they worked very hard. She lived with an aunt in Cabbagetown neighborhood, and that's, of course, downtown Toronto. And she worked at, and I remember this jewelry warehouse, because when I was in the family jewelry business, we dealt with Coral jewelry quite a bit. And they made a lot of the high fashion costume jewelry, Coral jewelry. And it was also, Coral jewelry was the fashion jewelry to go to in the 60s and 70s. And it was there she met James Patrick Robertson, and they married in 1942. So she continued working at the Coral Jewelry Factory, and the three, they lived in several Toronto neighborhoods while Robbie was a child. Now, he often traveled with his mother to the reserve to visit family. Here, he was taught guitar. Here is the beginning, the main roots. He was taught guitar by his older cousin, Herb Mike. He became a fan of rock and roll and rhythm and blues through the radio, listening to disc jockey George Hound Dog Lorenz. And I remember listening to that same radio program on WKBW, that's Buffalo, New York, and staying up to listen to JR's All Night Blues Show on WLAC, which was a clear channel station in Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow.
How good is that, Dave? His early career now. When Robbie was 14, he worked 2 brief summer jobs in traveling carnival circuit. Okay, so he's with the carnival, traveling the different tours and that. First for a few days in the suburb of Toronto, and later as an assistant at a freak show for 3 weeks during the Canadian National Exhibition. He later drew from this a song that he wrote called Life is a Carnival. And Life is a Carnival is on the greatest hits of the band. So here again, his association with the band, an integral part. So he wrote the song Life is a Carnival, and also that song was used with the movie Carney in 1980, which he both produced and starred in. How good is that? The first band Robbie joined was Little Caesar and the Councils, formed in 1956 by pianist, vocalist Bruce Morshed and guitarist Gene McClelland. He stayed with the group for almost a year, playing popular songs of the day at local teen dances. In 1957, he formed Robbie and the Rhythm Chords with his friend Peter Thumper Traynor, who later founded Traynor Amplifiers and, of course, Traynor Speakers. In fact, I still have my original Traynor speakers, Dave, here in the office, the original Traynor speakers. And that was an excellent company, still is. You bought a Traynor, you bought quality, right on down the line. Traynor speakers, Traynor amplifiers, you name it. So anyway, that was a good fit. We now would like to look at Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks and his association with Ronnie. Robertson began shadowing Hawkins. After the Suedes opened for the Arkansas-based rockabilly group Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks at Dixie Arena, Hawkins, he hired Robertson for the Hawks road crew. How good is that? Hawkins recorded 2 songs co-credited to Robertson, and those 2 songs, Dave, were Hey Babaloo and Someone Like You. These 2 songs were in his album Mr. Dynamo from 1957, Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks. So here we have now the beginnings of an association of Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks and Robbie Robertson. What a connection that is. So Hawkins hired pianist Scott Kushney and took him on tour in the Arkansas with the Hawks. When the Hawks bass player left the group, Kushney recommended that Hawkins hire Robertson to replace him on bass, which Hawkins did. He took his good advice. So here now we have Robbie Robertson playing in the group with Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks. How good is that, Dave? It's like,
excellent.
wow. Roy Buchanan was a few years older than Robbie Robertson, was briefly a member of the Hawks, but he became a very important influence on Robertson's guitar style. Standing next to Buchanan on stage for several months, Robbie was able to absorb Buchanan's deft manipulations with his volume speed dial, his tendency to bend multiple strings for steel guitar-like effect, his rapid sweep picking, and his passion for bending past the root and fifth notes. How good is that? And Robbie learned quickly from him. So Roy Buchanan was an integral part of how Robertson kind of defined his guitar style. Tremendous opportunity here, and Robbie took full advantage of it, I'm sure. Now, drummer-singer Levon Helm was already a member of the Hawks and soon became close friends with Robbie. The Hawks continued to tour the United States and Canada, adding Rick Danko, yay, our local Rick Danko, Richard Manuel, and Garth Hudson to the Hawks lineup in 1961. So here we have our local boy, Rick Danko, 1961, joining Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks. How good is that, Dave? That is history in the making. Local boy.
Yeah, and it's all 4 or 5 of those guys were Canadians, which is incredible. That at that time, all those guys were developing the repertoire with Hawkins. And I quick little sidebar story is that my mother remembers seeing them at the Summer Gardens in Port Dover.
Oh yes,
and it's kind of that heritage that we appreciate and understand that these were all guys that were in Southern Ontario for the most part. Well, and Hawkins ended up being based out of Canada for a long time, but it was just kind of cool to see this as you read or watch this happen. I've been lucky enough to read enough books on them that this development is just incredible. These guys are, putting in their 10,000 hours under Ronnie Hawkins to becoming the band eventually.
Exactly. And the lineup, which later became the band, toured with Hawkins through 1962 and into 1963. They also hired saxophone player Jerry Penfound and later Bruce Bruno, who were both with the group in their intermediary period as Levon and the Hawks. Now, Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks cut sessions for Roulette Records, and Roulette Records at that time in Canada, they were huge. So they cut sessions with Roulette Records, and that was through a period of 1961 to 1963, all of which Robertson appeared on. The sessions included 3 singles, Come Love, I Feel Good, and Who Do You Love, and High Blood Pressure. How good is that? High blood pressure. Now we take a look at with Levon and the Hawks. The Hawks left Ronnie Hawkins at the beginning of 1964 to go on their own chosen ways. So the members of Levon and the Hawks befriended blues artist John Hammond while he was performing in Toronto in May of 1964. Later in that year, the group agreed to work on Hammond's album So Many Roads, and at the same time, they were playing the Peppermint Lounge in New York City. The Peppermint Lounge in New York City, that was the place to be in the 60s. Robertson played guitar throughout the entire album and was billed Jamie R. Robinson in the album's credits. And Jamie spelled Jaime, but he was in the album's credits. Now, how good is that, Dave? How good is that? Wow.
I wonder what the story is behind that. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now we take a look at Robbie with Bob Dylan and the Hawks. Now here we're looking at specifically 1965-1966 World Tour. Toward the end of the Levon and the Hawks' second engagement at Tony Mark's in New Jersey in August of 65, Robertson received a call from Albert Grossman, management. And this was requesting a meeting with Robbie to singer Bob Dylan. Wow. So Robbie agreed to meet with Dylan. Now, initially, Dylan intended simply to hire Robertson as the guitarist for his backing group. Okay. Robertson refused the offer, but did agree to play 2 shows with Dylan, one at the Forest Hills Tennis Stadium in Forest Hills, New York on August 28th, and the other one at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, September 3rd, Hollywood Bowl. I've been there to see various performances. That place, the acoustics at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, second to none, with the exception here in Canada of the Carnegie Hall in Toronto. The acoustics there, I would say, would equal the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, if not better.
Wow. So
Robertson and Helm, they performed in Dylan's backing band along with Harvey Brooks and Al Cooper for both shows. At first at Forest Hill, it was predominantly, the response was kind of negative, but in the second in Los Angeles at the Hollywood Bowl, they received standing ovations. And Dylan flew up to Toronto and rehearsed with Levon and the Hawks September 15th to 17th of that year, 1963. So Bob Dylan and the Hawks, they toured the United States through October to December of 1965, with each show consisting of 2 sets. There was an acoustic show featuring only Dylan on guitar and harmonica, and an electric set featuring Dylan backed by the Hawks. Okay.
I don't think people realize that moment in time when Dylan was going electric. A lot of things I'd read over the years, that was really hard on the band because they got booed a lot.
Yeah,
it was kind of like they're paying their dues at this point because everybody wanted to see Dylan acoustic, and all of a sudden he turns electric, and people are freaking out in that era because they just wanted the folk. And there's the band, you know what I mean, taking the brunt of it every night. Like it hardened these guys to the point where they were going to do their music no matter what. We look back now and what a lesson for that band, for the band.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, what a toll it must have taken.
Yes. Oh, yes. No question. Dylan and the Hawks, they played more dates in continental United States from February to March of 1966. This, of course, Bob Dylan's 1966 World Tour. From April 9th to May 27th, they played in Hawaii, Australia, Europe, and the UK and Ireland. Like, wow, holy moly. They're covering all kinds of countries there. Had to be exhausting for them. On November 30th, 1965, Dylan cut a studio session with members of the Hawks, which yielded the non-LP single, Can You Please Crawl Out of Your Window? What a name for a song. However, Dylan completed the Blonde on Blonde album. Wow.
Yeah,
in Nashville in mid-February of 1966, employing Robbie Robertson for one of these sessions, which took place on Valentine's Day, February the 14th.
Yeah.
How good is this? We're now going to take a quick look at Robbie Robertson's basement tapes period. This is interesting. In February of 1967, Dylan invited members of the Hawks to come up to Woodstock, New York to work on music. Robertson had met a French-Canadian woman in the Paris stop of Dylan's 1966 World Tour, and the two moved into a house in the Woodstock area. Now, the remaining 3 members of the Hawks rented a house near West Segretes, New York, and it was later dubbed the Big Pink because of its pink exterior. So here they reside at the Pink House.
You can see that on the album. Yeah.
How good is that? So Dylan and the members of the Hawks worked together at the Big Pink House every day to rehearse and to generate ideas for new songs, many of which they recorded in Big Pink's makeshift basement studio, hence basement tapes, period. Very, very interesting. In time, word about these sessions began to circulate. And in 1968, Rolling Stone magazine co-founder Jan Winter brought attention to these tracks in an article entitled Dylan's Basement Tape Should Be Released. Interesting, very interesting.
One of the things that I learned about that too, when they were recording the basement tapes, and I'm not sure, I think it was Robbie Robertson that had said this, is that the band had to learn to play, it was a low ceiling, they had to learn to play softer. So he said because the feedback and everything else and this echo in the basement, they lowered their voices, they lowered their sound. And he thinks that, you know, he gives that some credence to them finding their connection to their sound of music. And I thought that was really interesting because when you do listen to it, they're never really overboard. There's, you know what I mean? Like the sound doesn't explode, but it's so soothing, and all their songs are like that. And I think he said that's probably where it came from.
Yeah, so true, Dave. And in 1975, Robertson produced an official compilation entitled, of course, The Basement Tapes, which included a selection of tracks from the sessions that they had done, an exhaustive collection of all 138 extant recordings was released in 2014 as the bootleg series volume 2, The Basement Tapes Complete. Wow. Now, the next portion we'd like to share with our audience, Dave, and this is huge, his years with the band. Okay, music from the Big Pink, and here we go. Over the course of the Basement Tapes period, the group had developed a sound of their own, and Grossman went to Los Angeles to shop and group to a major label. Well, he secured a contract, get this, Dave, with Capitol Records. And Capitol Records, nobody beats Capitol Records in that time frame for music. The group went to New York to begin recording songs with music producer John Simon. Capitol brought the group to Los Angeles to finish the album. Now, the resulting album, entitled Music from Big Pink, was released in August of 1968. Now, Robbie Robertson wrote 4 of the songs on Music from the Big Pink, including The Wait, Chest Fever, Caledonia Mission, and To Kingdom Come. Now, here's an interesting point. He's listed in the songwriting credits as J.R. Robertson. Okay, he sang lead vocal on the track To Kingdom Come. He did not sing on another band song release to the public until Knockin' Lost John, 1977. Wow. But here's an interesting point too. Dave, 2 of Robertson's compositions for the album The Wait and Chest Fever became very important touchstones in the group's career. The Wait was influenced by the films of director Louis Brunel, in particular in Nazarene and Verdenia, and it reflects the reoccurring theme in Brunel's films about the impossibility of sainthood.
Wow. Interesting.
Very interesting. Wow. Now, just for the record books, The Wait reached number 21 on the British radio charts. It did not fare well on the American charts, initially stalling at 63, which I can't believe in the United States. Like here in Canada, it soared to the top of the Billboard 100, yet it was only 63 in the US. That's hard to fathom. I don't agree with that at all.
Well, the audience wasn't there yet for that sound.
I guess, yeah, true. Yeah, very true. But then wait, there's more. The song gained traction following more successful covers by Jackie DeShannon in 1968. It reached number 55. Aretha Franklin did a version of The Wait. It reached top 20 in 1969. And the Supremes with the Temptations, they did a rendition of The Wait. It reached 46 on the top Billboard 100 in 1969. And also they included the song in the movie Easy Rider in 1969. And when it was included in the Easy Rider movie, it became a runaway success. Finally, The Wait has since become the band's best known song. And I guess so. I mean, okay, all due respect to Up on Cripple Creek, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, and a few others, but The Wait, that was their signature song. Wouldn't you agree, Dave?
Totally agree. There's another little underlying sort of legendary, don't know if it's true or not, story behind that album was that the band really didn't have a name for the band, and it was kind of forgotten about, and they just put on that the band. So they weren't, before that, they weren't known as the band. They didn't really have a name. And so in the credits it just said the band. They didn't put the name in, the, you know, whatever the name was they wanted to call themselves. Like they had another name, but it was really odd and it didn't fit. And I can't even remember it off the top of my head. But anyway, so when they made the record, they just put the band. And that's the way it stayed for all that. Who are they? The band. It's just an interesting little tidbit that I had read about, and I thought, wow, like it's kind of cool that they're so into the music that they didn't really, you know, they were trying to think of a good name, and it just ended up being the band, and it fits so appropriately now, all these years later. It's like, yeah, that's the band. So I just thought it was kind of interesting, and yeah, the Robbie Robertson thing with the songwriting is just incredible.
Absolutely.
The guy just had that knack in that era. And I think the band is one of those bands that over time just gets stronger and stronger. Like it's just, their strength is just, it continues to grow. They never really shrunk. They just continue to grow as the legend grew with this music. And you said Americana is what they called it. I think it's Canadiana.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. Yeah.
Got all those Canadians in there. Exactly. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
But I'm very blessed that I was able to pick up the band, The Greatest Hits. Yep. These are rare copies to get a hold of on CD. And also I've got another, The Best of the Band and this is on Capitol Records, Capitol CD. Yeah. These are rare. These are hard to find, and get your hands on one of these. Fantastic. Really, really good. I get requests quite a bit for the band, especially the weight, be it weddings, be it fundraisers, whatever. Up on Cripple Creek, The Wait is the #1 requested song from the folks who request music by the band.
That's cool.
Top song.
I think I got the band's second album on vinyl. I haven't got Big Pink yet on vinyl, but that's one of my goals. The music too on vinyl just sounds so incredibly good. The band. It's just so full and rich. I love it.
And moving right along, in early 1969, the band rented a home from Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah, this is a great story.
And converted the poor house behind it into like kind of a studio to recreate the clubhouse atmosphere effect that they had previously enjoyed at the Big Pink House.
Here you are at Sammy Davis Jr.'s pool, hanging out, having his pool house, playing music. I think Clapton showed up at one point during that session too, and hung out with the band. Crazy. Oh,
yeah, that's better than good. And here's a little tidbit here, Dave, that I want to share with our audience. And this is huge. On November 2nd, 1969, the band appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. Now, during that time frame and decade, like if you were on the Ed Sullivan Show, you had it made.
Yeah.
Just like that. He had that much, I hate to use the word power, but his entertainment show, the Ed Sullivan Show, was a huge musical success. And any of the groups, be it a single artist, male, female, rock groups, whatever, folk groups, you appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, you were in.
Yeah. You only had 3 TV stations then too. So, you know, realistically, you were getting a third of the American population watching it. Probably more, obviously, with the Ed Sullivan Show because it was so big. So, yeah, you're reaching millions in one show. Literally. That's pretty cool.
And also, on January 12th, 1970, the band was featured on the cover of Time magazine. Another wonderful accomplishment. You're on the cover of Time magazine. Again, you've made it. Like, how good is that? That is fabulous. And hey, well deserved though. Well deserved.
Yes, earned. Yeah.
The band continued to tour throughout 1970-71. A live album was recorded at a series of shows at the Academy of Music in New York City between December 28th and December 31st, 1971. And after the Academy of Music shows, the band again retreated from performing live. They returned to the stage July 28, 1973 to play the Summer Jam at Watkins Glen alongside the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead. Wow. How good is that? Wow. In 1974, we're looking at a reunion now with Bob Dylan. In February of 1973, Bob Dylan relocated from Woodstock, New York to Malibu, California. Coincidentally, Robertson moved to Malibu in the summer of 1973. And by October of that year, the rest of the members of the band had followed suit, moving into properties near Zuma Beach. So how good is this? David Geffen.
Yep.
David Geffen had signed Dylan to Aslan Records and worked with promoter Bill Graham on the concept that became the Bob Dylan and the Band 1974 tour. It was his first tour in over 7 years. How good is that? David Geffen. In a lot of the 45s that I have, David Geffen, songwriter, producer. If you were attached somehow to David Geffen, you were in for long-time contracts. He was a key driving force in musical songwriting and records. We now take a look at 1974 to 75, the Shangri-La Studios. Following the 1974 reunion tour with Bob Dylan, rock manager Elliot Roberts booked the band with the recently reunited Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And on September 4th, oh, listen to this, Dave. On September 4th, both artists played in Wembley Stadium in London, appearing with Jesse Colin Young and Joni Mitchell.
Wow. Some star power there.
Yeah, how good is that? After moving to Malibu in 73, Robbie Robertson and the band had discovered a ranch in Malibu near Zuma Beach called Shangri-La and decided to lease the property. The main house on the property had originally been built by actress Margot Albert. So here again, this Shangri-La Studios proved to be a return to the clubhouse atmosphere that the band had enjoyed previously at Big Pink. So here along the same lines, doing their recordings, songwritings, and the whole bit. We now take a look to the years 1976-78, The Last Waltz. The band began touring again in June of 1976, performing throughout the summer. The members of the band were splintering off to work on other projects. Leon Helm building a studio in Woodstock, Rick Danko having been contracted to Arista Records as a solo artist. Arista Records, very big record company. Rick Danko, hey, big contract there for him. Well, on the summer tour, member Richard Manuel severely injured his neck in a boating accident, and he had to take time off to recuperate from that. So here we have quite an interesting scheduling of tours. This Last Waltz theme that Robbie Robertson had just completed, he wrote that in less than 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
How good is that? Bob Dylan was brought in at the end of the second set, performing several songs and finally being joined with the other guest stars for a finale performance of I Shall Be Released. And but here again, we see Bob Dylan coming in, and this Last Waltz concert was really a recapitulation of the entire years of the band, the association of Robbie Robertson, Bob Dylan. In April of 1977, country star Emmylou Harris and gospel vocal star group the Staple Singers were filmed on a soundstage at MGM performing with the band. Wow.
I've seen that. I've seen a clip of that. Yeah.
Emmylou Harris performed on Evangeline, a new song written by Robertson, and the Staple Singers performed on the new recording of The Wait,
Yep.
which they already recorded back in 1968. So here we are, the last waltz film. It was a film fared kind of a farewell with both rock and film critics. Uh,
It's
really,
legendary now.
a nice
It's huge. If you've never seen it, folks, go see it. Scorsese scored that. He's the director of it.
Mhm.
It's got everybody from Neil Young, Van Morrison, Neil Diamond, Joni Mitchell. Like, the performances are phenomenal. Neil Young, and it's just one of those videos that you've got to see if you're any kind of a rock and roll savant. It's the thing to see. I mean, it's just a great show, and it truly was the last time they all performed together. Like, it's just phenomenal. And to see that, you really get a sense of the band over time, who they were, and how well they played together with just everybody coming in on stage and playing with them. It's, to me, it's like a rock classic. You got to see it. If you've never seen it, take the time, find it. I'm sure it's on YouTube, Netflix, somewhere, something. But take the time to watch The Last Waltz and just enjoy it for what it is, because it really is The Last Waltz.
Absolutely, Dave. And Robbie Robertson, just a note, played guitar on ex-Beatle Ringo Starr's third solo album entitled Ringo, 1973, performing with 4/5 of the band on the track Sunshine Life for Me. Robertson contributed a guitar solo on the track Smookaroo on Starr's fourth album, also Goodnight Vienna, 1974. So here he's performing with Ringo Starr. In 1975, Eric Clapton recorded the album No Reason to Cry at the band's Shangri-La Studios. How good is this? With help from the members of the band. And Robertson played lead guitar on the track Sign Language with Eric Clapton.
Yeah. And Clapton played The Last Waltz too. I forgot that.
Yeah. In 1977, Robbie Robertson contributed 2 album projects from the band's alumni. Robertson played guitar on Java Blues on Rick Danko's self-titled debut album, and also played guitar on the Earl King penned Sing 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 on the album Leave On and the RCO All-Stars. So here again, Rick Danko, self-titled debut album. Good for Rick Danko.
Yeah.
So he's very much an integral part of the success of the band also. So he did a little bit of filming, as I mentioned earlier. Raging Bull, 1980. That was probably one of his better films. Raging Bull. Solo career. Here we take a look at his association with Geffen Records. Once again, Geffen, huge record producer. Robbie Robertson began work on his first solo album, Robbie Robertson, in July of 1986, signing to Geffen Records, and that was a huge success for him. He had a single. His largest hit in the UK was Somewhere Down the Crazy River.
Yeah.
Lazy River. That's the name of another song, I might add. But the video for Somewhere Down the Crazy River, again, was directed by Martin Sorcy and features Maria McKee in an acting role. So here again, Robbie Robertson produced several hits on the Billboard mainstream rock charts. And the album was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Rock Vocal Album and was certified gold in the United States in 1991. Wow. In Canada, Robbie won Album of the Year, Best Male Vocalist of the Year, and Producer of the Year at the Juno Awards ceremony in 1989. So here again, Robbie's work in songwriting, guitar, production has not gone unnoticed, but he indeed was an integral part of the band. And let's see, other works in Rome. Robbie Robertson, he headlined the 1995 annual Labor Day concert with supporting acts by Andre Bocelli, Elvis Costello, and Radiohead. Like, holy moly. So he's in with the best of the best during the time frame. Just a little bit on his personal life, Dave. March 24th, 1968, Robbie married Dominique Bourgeois, a Canadian journalist. They had 3 children, daughters Alexandria, Sebastian, son Sebastian. And in March of 2022, just about a little over a year ago, Robertson became engaged to his girlfriend of 4 years, Canadian entrepreneur and restaurateur, Janet Zuccarinini. Say that 10 times fast.
I was going to say.
On March 12th, 2023, they were married. Wow. March 12th, 2023. August 9th, 2023, at the young age of 80, after a year-long battle with prostate cancer. So, but Robbie lived a really good life, Dave, and certainly an integral part of the band. And to close off the broadcast, I want to share with our audience. I want to share this with you. This is really something. I have a picture of Robbie Robertson. I have a picture of my wife, Charlene Robertson, whom I married. I want the audience to take a look at the eyes, take a look at the physical facial features of Robbie and Charlene. Okay, here we go. You ready for that? This is
Sure. Is there? I don't know.
Somewhere down the line, there has to be a DNA connection, Dave. Okay, folks, take a look at this.
This, Randy, from what you were telling me earlier, there's probably back there's a connection in the family background with your wife and Robbie Robertson, that they're at some point they're related, eh?
Yeah.
That's
Can
pretty
you see
cool.
that fairly clear?
Yeah, I got her. That's excellent.
Look at that. Look at the eyes together. Look at the physical facial features. Oh man, there's got to be some DNA. Has to be. Absolutely has to be.
And there you go. Randy Hummel has that connection to so many artists over the years and now it's nice that your wife has that connection too, because that's phenomenal. It's pretty cool when you think about it. And it's all, this whole show has been really surrounding Norfolk County and with Mr. Danko from Norfolk County in his lifetime of music. It's kind of interesting to see. There's so many splinters in this that we could go to down the road to do other shows. Just phenomenal. These guys, all these guys that were in the band, and their stories and their background. And I'm sure we'll get to it at some point. But today we were just sort of saying thank you to Robbie Robertson, the late Robbie Robertson, for the music. And like you said, you brought up so many great points about what his value was and how underappreciated he really was, that we didn't really understand all that he was doing in the band and the music. But today we got to share that, and I want to thank you for doing that, Randy.
Well, thank you, Dave. I've enjoyed the program and sharing my tidbits here of Robbie Robertson, and really the true likeness of Charlene and Robbie together. The eyes, the facial features. That just kind of blew me away when I found the picture of Charlene. I thought, just looking at it last night, holy moly, this is incredible. And so I've got to share this with Dave and our audience tomorrow during the podcast. Fantastic. But I really enjoyed working with you again, Dave. Coming up this Sunday, please don't forget, it's the Run for the Cure at the Simcoe Lions Baseball Park. Gail Catherwood, the director. It looks as though the weather's going to be pretty good. I will be playing warm-up music for the runners. I'll be playing music, upbeat music after that. So please join us at the Simcoe Lions Ballpark this Sunday. I believe the run gets underway at 11 a.m. And it'll be a good fundraiser for the Canadian Breast Cancer Foundation of Canada.
And that's October 1, correct? October 1.
October 1st, this coming Sunday. And the good Lord will have lots of sunshine shining down for the runners and the walkers.
All right. Take care, Randy.
Have a good week, Dave. We'll talk soon. Bye now.